Having recently finished the Av Academy UX Bootcamp, I reflect back and think about the massive amount of information that I learned, but also the mistakes that I learned along the way that helped me to grow as a UX designer. So what I thought I would do in this video is share some of the mistakes that I made so that if you're interested in becoming a UX designer, you can hopefully avoid some of those mistakes. So here are the top 11 mistakes that I made as a UX Bootcamp student. Number 1, unrealistic expectations and how quickly I can learn UX. So just like any skill, UX takes a lot of time to get good at. And when I was going through my UX bootcamp, while none of the material was really difficult to learn, a lot of it was difficult to get good at, especially when it comes to UI design. And I still don't claim to be that great when it comes to designing UI interfaces, but it's something that I'm continually learning and practicing to get better at. Number 2, comparing myself to other people in the program. So early on in the bootcamp, I would often compare my work to the work of other students for some reason. And I really had no good reason of doing this. I was just trying to get an ego boost. And I found that often it would just leave me feeling bad, especially if I saw someone that had a really good design. So later on, I realized that I just need to compare my work to who I was the prior week. And that's really a better gauge of how much I'm improving as a UX designer. Number 3, not connecting with mentors through LinkedIn. So after my UX bootcamp, I actually met with a mentor outside of the bootcamp who told me that one of the best ways to get a job in the industry is to actually start connecting and reaching out to people in the UX industry on LinkedIn. And she said that if you start building a network through LinkedIn, the algorithm will start showing you to more people within that industry. And I wish that when I started, I would connect with people on LinkedIn because I meet with mentors through Zoom during my UX bootcamp. And if I had to do it again, whoever I met with through a Zoom session, I would go to LinkedIn and add them as a connection. Number 4, expecting things to go as planned. So I had a massive pivot in my bootcamp project where the original problem that I was planning to solve was helping musicians find time to make music. But after doing user interviews, I realized that the actual problem was helping musicians connect and network with other musicians. And at first I thought I messed up the project because I was now solving a totally different problem. But a mentor told me that that's actually a good thing to pivot, and it's a great thing to have in a project because it means that you're thinking better about the user, and it just makes for good storytelling when I go to write a case report about it. Number 5, half-assing my design system. So I didn't really understand the importance of having a comprehensive design system, and so I adopted a less is better approach when designing my design system. And so I had very few typography choices and very few color palettes, thinking that would make life easier when really it did not. I found that there were times where I needed font sizes that were in between what was already in my design system, or there were button layouts that I just didn't have in my design system. So I think going forward, the best thing to do is to have more options in the design system so that it makes for a more streamlined UI design process. Number 6, not accounting for the phone's operating system UI. So if you look at the bottom nav bar of most apps, the icons have pretty considerable spacing between the bottom border of the phone, and that's to account for the operating system UI. So for iPhone, it has that little horizontal bar so you can swipe up to go to the home screen. I did not account for this when I was designing my wireframes, and so the icons were really close to the bottom of the border, which really limits accessibility. Number 7, not using a grid system. So when I was first designing my wireframes, I did not know how far apart to space elements, and so I pretty much just did it based off of visual look, which led to a lot of spacing inconsistencies. And so later on, I learned about the 8-point grid system, which basically says to space elements apart based on multiples of 8. So either 8 pixels, 16 pixels, 24, and so on. And so this makes life just so much easier because it just narrows down the decisions I have to make and just makes the whole UI design process more streamlined. Number 8, being too much of a perfectionist when it comes to wireframes and high fidelity screens. So it took me a long time to do my wireframes, and it's really because I was being a perfectionist, and as a result, I submitted my UX Bootcamp project 5 weeks late. So I think there needs to be a little bit of a better balance between trying to make it look polished, but also just shipping the damn thing out so that you can start to user test it. And I think that if I'm able to be more efficient with that, I won't be tweaking all these little things that probably won't have any real huge impact on the user anyway. Number 9, not using auto layout in Figma. Now, truth be told, this is more of an advanced skill, and I can't say I probably would have wanted to learn this at the start of my bootcamp because it is a lot to absorb. But after my bootcamp, I decided to learn about auto layout, and it just changed my whole outlook on design. So basically, when I was designing my wireframes, I placed every element where I thought it should be. And even though I was using the 8-point grid, I was doing it manually. But auto layout basically does it automatically, and you just set certain parameters, and it allows for a more responsive screen layout. So again, can't say that I would probably want to delve into it at the start of the bootcamp, but I will say now that I have learned it, it'll just make my whole design process going forward so much easier. Number 10, expecting people to actually show up to user testing sessions. So I had to have 5 people user test my app on Zoom. And the one thing I failed to account for is the fact that some of them will just cancel last minute or no show. So I had 3 people do that. And so it made it to where I had to scramble to get 5 people that I needed for the user testing. So my advice is to, 1, send a confirmation email the night before just to make sure they're able to show up. And number 2, have a backlog of 2 to 3 people that you can reach out to just in case someone does cancel or no show. Number 11, letting my ego get in the way during user testing sessions. So during the user testing sessions that I did, I found that I could feel my ego getting riled up when people were critiquing my app. And so I found it helpful to tell myself repeatedly that people are critiquing the app, not myself. It does not reflect my capabilities of a designer. All the feedback that I get is really just to make the app better. And so the more that I told myself that, the less that I felt like I was being personally attacked when people were critiquing the app. And there we go. Those are the 11 mistakes that I made as a UX bootcamp student. I mean, truth be told, I made a lot more mistakes than that, but I think those are probably the top ones that I gained insight on, and hopefully you can gain some insight on. And so if you are a UX bootcamp student, I'm curious, what is one big thing that you have learned so far? And then let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in getting into UX design and want to know more about my experience with the UX bootcamp I did, Av Academy, you can check out this video here, which is my thoughts on Av Academy. And you can check that out there. And until next time, I will see you in the next video. Take care.